We've got to win over Tory voters, people who voted Liberal Democrat, people who voted Green, right across the country. Labour only ever wins if we are able to forge a coalition in the country. We only ever win if we're able to be united in holding together. The coalition is the Labour Party itself. And that's why it's so disappointing Jeremy isn't coming on the show to debate with me this evening as he'd promised and as I was expecting. Because I'd like to say to Jeremy, how is he going to unite the party? We've never looked more disunited. And it's never been, I think, more worrying for Labour that we can't go to the country and try and persuade people to vote for us and put their trust in us. Because right now they've lost faith and I think we've lost respect in the country, and it's pretty desperate.
So why do you think it makes sense to be on a platform more to the left of Ed Miliband?
Well, I'm on a platform on things that I believe in. I fundamentally believe...
But you're on the left, aren't you? You're to the left.
I'm totally on the left.
And yet you've just told me you need to fight from the centre and win over Tory voters.
Well, I think you are oversimplifying what left and right wants in this country. I think the reality is people who are middle class, working class, salaried, working week to week, day to day, all want to see public services properly provided for, all want to see the wealthiest in society pay their fair share, all want to see a government that's investing in different parts of the country, not just in the southeast and in London. That isn't left or right. That's just good common sense. We've got major problems in Britain, and Labour should be speaking for the people. And that's not about left or right, it's just about saving country.
Well, one of the places you're definitely to the right of Jeremy Corbyn on is immigration, because you've said there are too many immigrants in some parts of the country. What are you going to do about it?
Well, first of all, that's, again, a simplification of what I've said. I'm not going to do what others have done in this country, which is bandy around racist language or intolerant language about immigration. But we've got to be honest with the country, which is a lot of people who voted in particular to leave at the European referendum did so because they were worried about pressure on schools and hospitals and doctors' surgeries, and they attributed that to immigration.
So what are you going to do about that?
Well, invest is the principle.
So it's improve the schools and hospitals,
absolutely
not
right.
Cut the immigrants.
Absolutely right. The principal thing we in Labour should be doing is putting together what I've called a British New Deal. We've spent a lot of time and effort and money, we may do again this week, floating the bankers in Britain. It's time we started floating people and communities, and that means borrowing. £200 billion worth of borrowing I advocate in order to invest
But just on the number of immigrants, before we get to public services, I mean, are you saying we don't need to cut the number of immigrants coming into Britain?
Well, I'm saying in certain parts of the country, it's been a massive benefit for us to have high immigration. And in other parts of the country, it's definitely led to some pressure
you want to cut them all
on wages. Well, I'm saying we need an honest conversation with people.
Well, have an honest conversation with me then. Do you want to cut them or not?
I'm having one. I'm saying in certain parts of the country, it's been a benefit. In other parts, it's been a
So do you want, in the parts where there are too many, would you like to cut them?
I would be going into the European Union negotiations right now, arguing for what I think the British people wanted, which is, yes, a greater measure of control over migration, plus the benefits of being a trading partner within the European Union. It isn't a binary choice. It's changing, I think, in lots of European
What
markets.
about freedom of movement, then?
Well, that's what I'm saying does need to be on the table. We need to be arguing powerfully across Europe that we need both our cake and to eat it.
So you're like David Cameron. You want to be in Europe because you want to campaign for Britain to reject Brexit in a second referendum, but you think we should, do something about freedom of movement?
I'm saying that we should be asking for the Labour Party that argued, I think, for us to be in the European Union, now that we're leaving the European Union, to be strong and in favour of our principles, standing up still for staying in
But you want to resist it, don't you? You want to resist leaving the European Union.
I absolutely want to resist. I think it was a major mistake by Jeremy.
You want to overturn it, in fact, don't you?
No, I think it was a major mistake by Jeremy to come out on the following day and say, let's trigger Article 50 straight away. I think it reveals his ambivalence about Europe.
But do you want to overturn it at a second referendum?
I would like Britain to remain within the European Union. I would like that to be the Labour Party's position. But in order to get to the point where we can ask the British people once more to rubber stamp the deal, either at a general election or at a second referendum, we need, first of all, to negotiate toughly in Europe. And that
well, except you can't negotiate in opposition, can you?
Well,
so would you be the party
we
of the 48% or not?
No, we should be arguing, Christian, that the Labour Party, that has 9 million people who voted for it at this last election, and where 67% of those people voted to stay within the European Union, we should be arguing that Labour has a mandate and a right to sit alongside the Tories and negotiate. This is much bigger than party politics. It's a thing Jeremy didn't understand, I think, in arguing in Brexit. This has got the biggest consequences for this generation and subsequent generations of any political decision. It's bigger than any general election. It's bigger than any party. So Labour should be arguing really toughly at European levels that we want to both have our cake and eat it.
Let's talk about whether you're ready for leadership, because you've had a couple of sort of rocky moments. You've said things that came out wrong, certainly. What were you thinking when you said you'd like to smash Theresa May back on her heels?
I was thinking that the Labour Party's been a weak opposition in recent years. And we've sat by whilst the Tories have privatised the NHS effectively. We've sat by where they've destroyed great institutions like Sure Start.
But that's very violent language, isn't it?
I mean, well, I have apologised for it because I think it was.
But where did it come from? The idea of smashing a woman politician back on her heels?
Well, that's not quite what I was saying. Because if you've seen the speech,
what you said.
If you've seen the speech, what I was talking about was smashing back Tory ideology, Tory ideas. It obviously wasn't intended to be referring to Mrs May in person. I'd never have dreamed.
But people are wondering whether you're a bit unsound on gender, because you also suggested to Leanne Wood that she got more TV exposure because of her gender.
Well, again, that's a misreading what actually happened. We were debating our relative.
You said she gets on more because of her gender.
Look, and she wasn't offended by it, and we were talking in a much more general sense. And obviously, my opponents, some of the people who are supporting Jeremy Corbyn, some of the people in the right-wing press in this country, will seek to blow out of all proportion anything that I say. I'm expecting that, Christian. This is a leadership contest. The stakes are incredibly high. But that's why I'm coming out, speaking to you today, making my pitch. I'll be doing it right across the country. I think Jeremy needs to do the same.
The trouble is people are still trying to work out what you really are, because right now you say you're on the left, and you've been a very pro-Corbyn member of the Shadow Cabinet when you were there. You were a great supporter of Ed Miliband, and you were a great supporter of Tony Blair. You were asked in 2006 whether there's anything other than the Iraq War you disagreed with him on, and you said no, there wasn't. So are you a Blairite, a Milibandite, or a Corbynista?
I'm none of those. I'm a Smithite, very, very clear. And if I had somebody whom I hold up as being my great hero, it's none of those. It's Nye Bevan, somebody who is, I think, a very practical socialist who came from a very traditional left but sensible perspective.
But your politics have shifted, haven't they? Because you used to be pro-PFI. You used to be quite open-minded to private involvement in the NHS.
No, that's not true. You've got to stop believing what you've read on social media. Well, you are extrapolating from one report that was commissioned by my predecessor in an old job I had, which was about there being greater choice in the NHS, which is the language, of course.
You said we've had PFI in Wales, we had a hospital built down in Baglan through PFI. If PFI works, then let's do it. I'm not someone who gets terribly wound up about some sort of ideological nuances.
And I subsequently feel that PFI left lots of parts of the country, local authorities and health boards, saddled with debt. And that's clearly true. And I subsequently feel that the decisions that the then Labour government took to try and do effectively off-the-book development of schools and hospitals, public services, was a mistake, which is why I'm arguing what we should be doing now is borrowing £200 billion worth of borrowing by the government in order to directly invest in these things. Learn the mistakes of the past.
If you lose, can you rule out joining any kind of breakaway Labour group in Parliament? This is what's being talked about now, is that a load of people will set up a real Labour or a provisional Labour. There's no circumstances under which you would be involved in any kind of split.
Listen, I am...
And do you condemn the people who are talking about it?
Yes, I do. I am Labour full stop. It is the Labour Party or nothing for me. There is no other vehicle that is going to come along. We have been the party for 116 years that has represented working people, my community and across Britain, and it will always be the Labour Party that does that. The people who are talking about a split, unfortunately, are the hard left of the party. It was John McDonnell who looked me in the eye when I went to meet with Jeremy Corbyn. And when I said, John, I think you're sanguine about the prospect of the party splitting, his explicit response was, if that's what it takes. Now, that is when I decided to stand for this job, because I will not stand by and see the great Labour Party that I love broken apart by John McDonnell or anybody else.